Okay, so the other day we started using this chart on how to elaborate on text evidence. What I have been noticing about your writing, your essay writing, I have been noticing that a lot of you, when you go to say more about a piece of text evidence, you are basically just repeating the words that were in the text. When you are quoting and you're saying hamburgers came from Germany, you're elaborating by said, this means hamburgers came from Germany. Okay? Which is not really an elaboration. When you're saying more about something, it means that you're somehow explaining it. So one strategy that you can use to sort of help you to brainstorm ways that you can say more is what we call the SPEC strategy. Okay, each of the letters in SPEC is going to represent something that you could do when you're elaborating. So the S says that you could use your senses. You could tell your reader what this might look like. What might this look like? What might it sound like? If it's something that you could smell, if it had an aroma, what would you smell? And what would your reaction be to it? You know, think about the difference between smelling the exhaust from a diesel truck and smelling chocolate cake baking. Okay? All right, the P stands for things like your personal life, but it can also stand for policies, like the laws and the rules. For example, if you're stating something, what classroom rules might we have? If you quoted and you said, Go Noodle is a great activity for indoor recess on a rainy day, and you quoted that from the text because the text said that to you, you could say more by saying, however, if there are a lot of students in the classroom, there may need to be some new rules about how to move around during the Go Noodle activity. Okay, so you're saying more about it. You're saying something different about it. Okay, the E stands for not only environment, but also economy. Now, we all know what environment means. What impact might whatever you're talking about have on the environment? So if it fits with what you're talking about, you can talk about the impact on the environment. However, you might also want to talk about economy. And economy has to do with, Gabby, you really don't want to do that. Economy has to do with the amount of money in an area or in a country. Okay, when I think about the food flavoring industry text set that we did, I think about the fact that they talked a lot about making money in that food flavoring industry. Think about how that would impact the economy. And then you would say more about that. Okay, this would increase the amount of money for companies that found a flavor that people liked. The profits for that company would grow. The stock for that company would grow. All right, and then we have the C. The C stands for two things: culture, which means like a specific group of people. For example, Native Americans, African Americans. If you're talking about something in the past, you might talk about slaves. How does it impact a particular group of people? Or you might talk about how it would impact your community. Think about how would it affect your neighborhood. If you just put something into an essay and you talked about the fact that they were going to be building a factory down the street from you, you might talk about how that might impact your neighborhood because maybe the traffic will increase. Okay? Maybe housing prices will go up because everybody wants to live near where they work so they don't have a long commute. Okay? So you're saying more, not by repeating what was said, but by saying something different. Elaborating on it means that you're explaining it. Okay, so let's take a look at a model. And I took this from some of the text from our tacos and hamburgers. Okay? So if I presented this piece of text evidence in my essay, and I said, according to the article, Tacos Take Over, many neighborhoods were filled with the smells of meat spiced with dried chili peppers, woodsy cumin, and chocolate-tinged mole sauces. Okay, that's my quote. Now I want to elaborate. So Anthony, I want to elaborate by saying more. I think this is a perfect opportunity for us to use our senses. Okay, because it's talking about cooking and being filled with the smells of these spiced meats cooking. And so I could say more by saying, imagine the mouth-watering aromas floating out of the restaurants in Mexican neighborhoods. Okay, can you see, Oliver, how I said more about it? But I didn't say, imagine smelling spiced meats, dried chili peppers, woodsy cumin, and chocolate-tinged mole sauce. Okay? I'm not repeating what was in the text. What I am doing is I am saying more about it. And in this case, I decided that I was going to think about my senses. Okay, so now I want you to practice. And I want you to look at the practice number 1. Here is the text evidence. According to the article Hamburger History, dishonest butchers sold ground beef that was actually a mashup of spoiled meat, fat scraps, and other animal parts. Now, using the S just like I did, yes.
May I have Chase for sign out?
He's on his way.
Thank you, ma'am.
Now, if I'm looking at this piece of evidence, okay, I'm thinking to myself that we could also use senses here because they are talking about food. Okay, what kind of a, say more, what sense would you tap into here? Turn and talk to your partner about what sense you would tap into here to say more. All right. Okay, so what did you decide, Carol? What did you and Karina decide was a good sense to tap into for this quote? Okay, I want you to work on being able to get right to work. Adrian, what did you and you, Chin? Taste. Give me a thumbs up if you think taste would be a good sense to use for this. Say more. Absolutely. Why? Because they're talking about the spoiled meat, the fat scraps, and the other animal parts that are going to be in this ground beef that people are going to be eating. Okay, so go ahead and turn and talk to your partner about, and I want you to write first in the air, rehearse it with your verbally, okay, rehearse it verbally, and then I want you to write down what your say more would be about this text evidence. Go ahead and write.
Imagine this, your dad and your
Is eating words from the book. Okay, can I just stop you for a second? There are a couple of you who are already writing down what you would say as elaboration. Remember that you're not using the information from the quote. So if you say, dishonest butchers sold ground beef that tasted bad, you're taking things from here. So look at the model, okay? Okay, Tegan, could you go back to your seat, please? Thank you. All right, so think about the model and write a say more. Senses, taste. Go ahead, turn and talk.
Tell me how you think about this.
Okay, I'm going to stop you for a second. Who has a say more that they would like to share? Nicholas?
Lee and him came up with this together.
Who did?
Me and Sawyer and I.
Thank you.
Okay, imagine how disgusting it would taste if you ate that.
Okay. If you ate what? If you
That food.
can you be specific? Because this is where we're
Ground
really
beef.
the ground beef that would have been made into what?
Dishonest butcher ground beef.
What would?
Burger.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so say that again, but now use those specific details.
If you ate that hamburger, if you ate the hamburger with the ground beef in it,
All right, that's not a sentence.
imagine how disgusting it would taste if you ate that hamburger with that bad ground beef.
Okay, so you might just say something like, imagine how disgusting the flavor would be if you bit into a hamburger made from this meat. Okay, can you see how that's saying more, but it's not repeating what we're talking about? Jesus?
Imagine eating rotten fat and horse meat. That would make you sick to the core.
That would make you sick to the core. Gabby? Okay, there's a conversation going on over here that is really going to be rude to Gabby, who's trying to share. Go ahead, Gabby.
The economy became low when people found out what they made the ground meat out of for the hamburger.
Okay, so I have a problem with that because we all gave a thumbs up that we were going to talk about senses and that we were going to talk about taste. And I don't think that was the issue here. I don't think it had anything to do with the economy. Okay? All right, and saying the economy became low really isn't accurate. Okay, it's not completely accurate. Okay, Terry, would you please open the door?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go ahead and write down what we got from Nick and Sawyer. Imagine, Nicholas, give me more. Imagine what?
Imagine how disgusting the flavor would be if you took the bite of that.
The flavor would be, after taking a bite,
Taking a bite of that hamburger.
a hamburger made with that meat, I think, if I remember what Sawyer said. And I'm going to, instead of saying that, I'm going to say with ground beef, with that ground beef.
Don't forget the ew.
Well, you know what? Actually, we want to avoid using the word you in an essay. There are two places that you are allowed to use.
Ew.
Oh,
That's
ooh,
disgusting.
like EW, like
No.
the disgusting.
Yeah.
Okay, where would you put that?
At the very end.
At the very end? Okay. I'm sorry that I misunderstood you. Okay, so let's just review what we've learned today. We have learned that when we say more, we can use the SPEC strategy to help inspire us in what we can say. Anthony, could you go back to your seat, please? Thank you. And then we also learned that when we say more, we do not repeat what was just given in the quotes. Okay, and we learned that we can look at the quotes and make a choice based on what the topic is. In this case, both of our choices were about flavor. Okay, and because this whole text set was about flavor, okay, you may find other places that you can use this in the practice. Okay, when we're saying more, we're saying something different from the text that will help the reader to understand why we chose that quote. Okay, so you have two more practices here on your sheet. And what you're going to do when you go back to your seat is you are going to work on these by yourself. Now, guys, I know it's going to be difficult and maybe even a little bit uncomfortable to force yourself to think this way. I would like you to try to refrain from looking on somebody else's paper. And if you feel like somebody near you is copying off of your book, then cover up your work. You can put your elaboration sheet on there. Use your elaboration chart to inspire you how you're going to say more about each of the pieces of text evidence. And then from now on, as you continue to write your essays, you're going to use this strategy to say more. Any questions before you head back? Okay, please go ahead and make your way back